Welcome to Productly Speaking, the podcast with real stories from real product people about the messy, surprising, and occasionally brilliant work of building things. I'm your host, Carl Abbott. Here we have no perfect processes, no polished answers, just honest conversations and lessons learned the hard way. Let's give this a go. AI is making it easier than ever to execute, to move faster, to ship more. But when execution stops being hard, something else becomes visible. The judgments we make when nothing is forcing our hand, the boundaries we keep or don't, and the kind of people we choose to be at work when no metric is watching. Today's conversation is about one of those moments. Razy Shah is the co-founder of a digital marketing agency he's been running for over a decade. But this conversation isn't about tools or tactics. It's about a moment early in that journey that didn't look important at the time, and what it reveals about how we make decisions now, especially as AI takes over more of the execution. Razy, thanks for being here and welcome to Productly Speaking.
Thank you for having me on the podcast, Carl.
Yeah, so Razy, before AI entered the conversation, what did doing good work feel like in your day-to-day?
I run a marketing agency. We provide services to small businesses, to startups, and even to large companies. And what good work felt like was when we would create an excellent campaign. So this would mean writing a copy headline that converts, creating visuals that also convert, that the client will look at and say, this is a really nice visual. We like it. It's getting us leads, it's getting us conversion. So before AI, all of these things were being done by people, and it showed your experience, it shows your expertise in the craft. So that's how good work looked like. But now, as we all know, AI writes the headline, AI does the creative, AI optimizes the ad campaign for you. The other thing that good work looked like was, once you set up the ad campaign, are you optimizing it? Are you getting the results the client is looking for, the sales, the leads, the conversions? That was good work. But now, even if you look at Meta, if you look at Google, their AI can do this as well. So that's what good work looked like in our industry. And now all of that is now being done by AI.
So do you remember at what point that execution started to feel less special, like it just stopped being the advantage that it used to be?
Actually, very, very early on. So in December 2022, I was already tinkering with ChatGPT. Jan 2023, I think it became very mainstream. And by May of 2023, so we used to have this account where we would write content for this insurance client. We were writing content for them for 5 years at that point. And in May 2023, they said, hey, look, our HQ has decided that we are just going to use ChatGPT because ChatGPT is going to be cheaper, faster, quicker, better. It's going to understand our products better than a bunch of marketers can understand our insurance products. And so that was the first moment. A contract that's been there for 5 years being no longer renewed because ChatGPT could do the work better. And that was the early phase, right? So early phase of AI was written content. So a lot of people were using ChatGPT. And I remember back then when you generate an image of individuals or objects or people, it looked really strange because they'd have 6 fingers, 7 fingers. But now if you look at the kind of visuals it creates, I mean, it's just mind-blowing. Yeah,
it really has gotten there. And I mean, I'm sure you've seen it, but Will Smith eating pasta is the video standard of how AI has been. And the first versions of that are really bad. But the current versions of that are scarily good.
Have you seen the one from Hicksfield? So Hicksfield just did one recently where it's Will Smith eating the spaghetti, and then one of their AI actors walks in and joins him, and it looks like they are really by the beach somewhere, and it looks like it was filmed.
Yeah, I think that's the one I saw. They're by the beach, and it's just so good. And I mean, you almost can't compare the start and the end. There's that much of a difference between the two. Exactly. And the new one, it's kind of oh, this is dangerously hard to determine what's real or not here.
Yeah.
So what part of that shift, because you went through it, you saw it with your client, what part of that was personally unsettling, even if you couldn't name it quite yet?
What we are doing is we're doing a lot of execution. So what happens is when our clients come to us, usually they're not marketers. They don't have an in-house team. they are very intimidated by the platforms. Like if you go into Google's ad manager, if you go to Meta's business suite, they get very intimidated by the platform navigating it. They get very intimidated by all the jargon, CPL and things like that. So when execution got cheaper, what was unsettling for us was that, okay, look, now these clients, they can actually do the work themselves. They don't need an external agency to do the execution. So the execution, which used to be something, it's a craft, that we have perfected over years. We have hired experienced people. Now this execution can be done cheaply with a simple prompt, right? So what was unsettling for me is, what is going to be the demand for these services going forward, and not just the demand, but what is the price that a client is willing to pay for these kind of services. And the clear answer is that the demand might still be there, but the price that they're willing to pay is going to go down, right? So I was just, so that was what's unsettling for me. So what was unsettling is, in short, is the longevity of the marketing services agency business, and also, like, how do we pivot? What do I do to prepare for an age where marketing services can be done cheaply, can be done quickly, and you don't need such a big team to execute.
Yeah, and so we're a couple of years past the point where that client decided to start moving more of their business into AI. Have they come back, or has that continued?
No, they've not come back. They've just gone fully in house. In fact, I was at a marketing conference 2 days ago in Malaysia, and there were some CMOs of some very large Malaysian companies there. And one of the things they were saying is that instead of giving the work to an agency, what they've started doing is they've started doing it in-house, hiring in-house, and then using AI to empower their particular staff to do more, to do better.
Mm-hmm. But the idea of that, I guess, being that their staff that they hire in-house would still be able to judge the quality correctly, because with AI, I think that the human element is very much that you have to judge what you ask of it, and then you have to judge the output on
Yes.
that end.
Yes.
And that's a service where, like, you guys could still come in and play, but then if you start talking too specific, tell me about how kind of judgment plays into this at this point, and is there an angle there for your services and for trying to win business in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, judgment still plays a big part. So if you look at all the horror stories, I'll give you a few examples. Recently in Singapore, there were two lawyers who got fined $5,000 each because they had submitted some documents, or they had submitted some cases that were non-existent, right? And then the court found that they're wasting the court's time because they had to go and find these non-existent cases that were purely AI generated, and they got fined, right? And this is where human who would have cross-checked the work and the references, that judgment was necessary. The other thing that was recent, you might have seen the news, Deloitte had to refund, I think, the Australian government $440,000 for a report that they did because it was full of AI hallucinations. Did you see that one?
No, I did not see that one, but $500,000 is a significant amount of money.
And then then in just May of this year, just last month, Ernst & Young, EY, had to retract a paper that they had published because 16 of the references that were cited, 16 of the 25 references that were cited were hallucinated. So again, nobody is checking. And then, of course, you have the horror stories of visuals that had an extra building, an extra tower, which is why if you look at a lot of the clients we work with now, they are implementing this thing called a human in the loop. Because at the end of the day, if you use AI and something goes wrong, there needs to be accountability. So that human needs to be accountable before this thing goes into production, before it goes out into the wider public. And I think that's where the judgment bit is extremely important.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's pretty cool to hear that there is now requests and requirements for human in the loop in some of these places, because as you pointed out, you can get absolutely terrible output with AI. And if you then rubber stamp that and say, this is what we're doing, this is good, and put your name on it, well, you get fined or you have to refund things.
I mean, you have this, and you think that these companies that are so well resourced, they're so well funded, they have such a huge team, they will be a lot more careful. So if these big guys they are stumbling or they are tripping over when it comes to AI hallucinating or making poor quality outputs, just imagine the rest of us, the rest of smaller businesses, startups, individuals who are nowhere near as well funded, who don't have the resource that they have. Imagine the kind of mistakes they could potentially be also making.
Yeah, it's really crazy, and it's all for just basically passing on the quality of the judgment. That judgment happens in moments. It's not something that you just do at large and at writ. It really is in that moment where you're like, okay, I'm about to actually mark this as final and then send it off. That's where that judgment happens. And I think that that is really one of the critical human skills that we have in an age of AI. And you and I were talking before, and you had mentioned meeting early on with a restaurateur that struck with you. Take me back to that meeting.
So this is the early days of running the market. This is like 4 years into the marketing agency business. Since 4 years into starting this business. So this restaurant owner, he reached out to us and he was saying, "Hey, look, I've just started this hot pot restaurant. I want to do social media marketing, specifically Facebook marketing." But then he said, "I have no budget. I have no budget, but can you help me? I'm a new business. Help me make something out of this new venture that I've gone into." Usually, when you hear that someone has no budget, you disqualify them, right? So if you look at the whole thing about BANT, in sales, they always talk about whether someone has budget, the B, authority, the need, and whether or not there's some urgency, the timeliness around it. He had none of that. But he did have the A, which is the authority. He was a decision maker. Right? He did have a
Decision
need
maker with no budget. So, yeah.
Right. So the thing is, at that point of time, I'd been 4 years into entrepreneurship, into running a business. And I always wished that in my early days, if there was someone who had helped me, who had guided me, who had given me an opportunity, I could have come along a lot faster. I could have done a lot better in that 4 years. So in a way, maybe I saw a little bit of myself in him. So I did agree to meeting him, sitting down with him and teaching him all that I know about Facebook marketing so that he could be then empowered to take on his own content, take on his own Facebook marketing and make his restaurant a success.
Mm-hmm. So, what were some of the boundaries that you expected to have in place to keep around your time and energy there?
I thought maybe I'll just go in there, but boundaries would be around time, like, go in there, maybe be done in an hour and then move on so that I don't have to invest too much time. Just an hour, share with what I do it like a quick favor and then move on. So the main boundary I was trying to look at was around the how much of my time this was going to take in.
Yeah. And so as you kept talking to him, you kept using more of your time. What's kind of that back and forth conversation you're having in your mind as you see the clock kind of ticking past and you're probably getting excited by it. So that's what kind of drove you, I would assume.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. I know the thing is, once you go into these conversations, I mean, I have a lot to share about Facebook marketing back then. There's a lot of examples I could show him. There are a lot of things I could show him. I also wanted him to take some pictures of his food and put it up, create some posts live. So I just got carried away. But in the back of my mind, I was thinking of the other proposal that I had to write that was going to pay me 5 figures. I was thinking of probably I could have gone for a networking event where I could meet 20, 30 other people who could potentially give me business. So in the back of my mind is like, you have all these inner conversations that are happening. Is it like, oh, this is not the best use of my time? What am I going to tell my business partner that I spent 3 hours with the guy who's not going to be able to be on the retainer? So that's what was also going on in the back of my head.
So, yeah, when you finally left that meeting, what was going on in your head at that point? Were you like relieved to be done with the meeting, or were you energized by the meeting? What did that feel like at the end of it?
I would say I felt energized actually. So when I was done the meeting, I felt good. I feel it always feels nice when you give value to someone, especially someone who's new. You share some of your experiences, your expertise, and then there is appreciation, right? I mean, there's a lot of gratitude that the restaurant owner had shown me. He was very grateful. He's very happy, and of course, I felt good to have given the value, to have received the appreciation. And yeah, I walked out feeling lighter.
Yeah, and you told me earlier that for a long time after it, the conversation just kind of went quiet. Nothing really came out of it. But then, if I remember correctly, you said that you got a contract from him later on. Tell me a little bit about that.
I lost touch with their business. I speak to so many business owners, so I lost touch with him. And then years down the road, suddenly he messages me and says, "Hey Razi, I've started a new job, and we're looking for a marketing agency." So in my mind, I was saying, "Oh, this restaurant owner has now moved on to a job." I was wondering what kind of a job is he doing, what kind of a budget? Because I was reflecting back to my experience with him, he had no budget. I was like, "Oh no, this is like more work, but for a small budget." But turns out that so, but then turns out that they were a real estate company that was looking to launch in Singapore and very well funded, and they were looking for a marketing agency that could help them with PR, that could help them with their Google Ads, SEO, basically get them leads and get them visibility, awareness. And we landed a six-figure contract, right? So it was a six figures. It was unbelievable that
Mm-hmm.
an interaction years back would eventually lead to a six-figure contract many years down the road. And this is a
Very
six-figure
well
contract.
spent 3 hours.
Exactly. Exactly. When we are doing things like right now at the present, we rarely think about what this could potentially lead to years down the road. Especially if
Mm-hmm.
let's say you're in sales, you have a target to chase. It's very short term, because if you don't meet your target, whatever seeds you plant now, you might not have time to harvest them because you might already be out of the job. So yeah, I think a lot of times we are all very fixated on the short term outcome. We don't think of the longer term potential benefits. I mean, I think that's how our society, our modern society, a fast paced city life is like. You're just very short term, very outcome driven, not so much long term thinking and relationship driven, and looking at like giving to people.
So, did that experience change how you see yourself when you're making decisions?
100%, right? It made me want to do unscalable. I mean, saying yes to things that are unscalable, saying yes to things that don't have an immediate ROI. So, because one thing I've learned is in the early days, I mean, I didn't know whether or not my business will survive beyond, say, 3 to 5 years, right? So we've been doing this now for 14 years. So since I have a longer time horizon to look at things now, I do a lot more unscalable things. So I would say yes. So someone needs, if let's say an MBA student needs to pick my brain for half an hour, I give it, I let them have it, because who knows where this person might be years down the road. If someone is looking for, if like a student is looking for some help, I am willing to help. If someone needs me to conduct a free workshop for startups, I'm willing to do that. So I do a lot of these things that are not directly attributable to revenue, and things where you don't have an immediate obvious outcome.
Now, in this age of AI, when so much execution can be automated, what kind of moments like the one with the restaurateur are harder to ignore?
I think the moments that involve human connection. I was reading, there's this really interesting study that I was reading to prepare for a talk that I gave earlier this week. KPMG and the University of Melbourne, they interviewed 47,000 people across 48 countries to ask them about trust when it comes to AI generated content, trust when it comes to AI marketing. And they also asked them, what are they afraid of losing when, as AI becomes more and more, as AI takes over more and more things, right? And across
Mhm.
all of these countries, the top thing that people cited was human connection, right? So I would say it's the human connection. So these kind of moments, the human ones where you help somebody, where you provide value. I think that's the human part is the only thing that we can do in the age of AI. Like we have to go out there more, meet people, connect, provide value, and that's how I guess we will have the edge in the age of AI.
Yeah. No, I've seen a lot of that too, where it really is coming down to it's these human interactions that are valuable. That's where a lot of the real work gets done. Yes, we can automate away the execution
Yeah,
these days at a speed we've not been able to do before, but
yeah.
absolutely the richest interactions are still the human ones.
I mean, in future, do you think Carl we might have these where Carl the podcast host is the AI avatar of Carl, and he's interviewing the AI avatar of Razi?
I've thought about it, and you can actually do that today. And I suspect with a little bit of some Claude, we could have probably pulled this off in that manner, and it wouldn't have been super hard to generate a script between the two of us based on our profiles that are out there on the internet. Go read, here's Carl, here's Razy, here's some things Razy wrote, here's some things Carl wrote, here's the conversation topic we want to have, generate the script. Okay, here's 10 seconds of Carl talking, here's 10 seconds of Razy talking, feed that into a different type of agent that's now going to read the script in their voices, and voila. But it would be a little jilted. It
Yes.
wouldn't be right.
I was it's definitely possible, right? And I've seen a lot of podcasts that from just the voice, I know it's an AI.
Yep.
What was interesting is I was looking at this study also from there's this institute in Germany called the Nuremberg Institute for Market Decisions, and they did this study where they showed people AI generated ads. They didn't tell them that it's an AI generated ad. So they had two groups of people. So one, they showed the same ad. One, they said it's AI generated. One, they didn't tell them. The group that wasn't aware that it's an AI, they actually trusted it. They clicked on it. They were willing to interact. But the moment we told them that it's AI created, their desire to engage with it went down and their trust with it went down. So now if we do this podcast, which is just AI Carl speaking to AI Razy, if we didn't tell people that it's AI, they would trust it. But if, let's say, you put in a label and say this is AI generated, I think people will be like, they just skip it. They don't even listen to any of our conversation.
Yeah, exactly. And the interesting thing about that is that the conversation could be just as good.
Yeah, true. It may be better.
And not saying that like the AI is better than us, but just that it could take our writing styles and our speaking styles and the content. And it could very well be that in an AI version of this, Razy and I sat down and reviewed exactly what it was going to say and said, yeah, that's as good as I could have said it. Maybe we even made some edits to that AI document before we fed it into the AI voices to spit it out. But the moment, like you said, that you tell people it's AI, it's not trusted, even though the words themselves may actually be just as good as if we sat down and penned them, which is an interesting position to be in and to hold. I know that one makes me just a smidge uncomfortable because it's like you can write very well with AI. And I'm the type of person that I like to tell people I yell at my LLM quite a lot and tell it you're wrong, change this. And let's change it up about 20, 30, 40 times until it's finally, yeah, that sounds like something I would actually do.
Early last year, I was using a Copilot, Microsoft's Copilot, and actually I scolded it a little. And the Copilot responded by saying, "Hey, I don't like the tone of your tone. This conversation is over," and the conversation ended. I couldn't ask it to do anything. I had to start a new chat. That's like my first time getting like told off by an AI.
I've had that happen too. It might very well have been our Copilot product that did that to me. But yeah, these days I generally use GitHub Copilot with Claude Opus, and it's usually a little bit better than shutting you down unless you've been extremely egregious with it. But yeah, it is interesting that the AIs are like coded up and system prompted in such a way as to try and keep you from being too aggressive, I guess is the best way to put that.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, like, I don't normally like to bring in too current of events into the podcast so that they stay for a while, but Fable just dropped. And the number of people that are out there like, I can't get Fable to do this work or do that work because the guardrails are so strict that as soon as they ask it a question in that sphere, it drops them to Opus 4.8. Wow.
I've yet to try it. I just saw it was available as an option for the past 2 days, but I don't have any task that is Fable level. My tasks are just solid.
Yeah, I know a lot of what I do, Opus is plenty fine for. And it's like, I don't need anything more. And looking at how much more this cost, is like, yeah, I think I'm pretty good right about here. Yeah. Who knows? Maybe at some point there will be a model that is more expensive that makes me go, that's the one I want to actually spend the tokens on. So output has, as we've talked about, become extremely easy to generate now. I think that from my perspective, one of the key tricks to actually getting good content out of it is the context. And I like to have a conversation with my AI before we actually end up with the final thing. It's not just a singular prompt. It's like maybe hours or maybe even days of working on something and, still taking kind of that craft approach to it of that doesn't look quite right. That doesn't look quite right. Let's shift this. Let's shift that. Let's change this. I don't really quite like this. The story's not quite landing for me. I like to do all of that. But so there's a lot of me working with AI through a lot of my thoughts and context to get to that point. But when you're working with AI, what are the types of things that you're personally paying attention to that the AI still can't show you, or that may be blind spots for that AI?
I pay attention to the way the output it comes up with in terms of these speaking style. I mean, I still pay attention to, like, when he uses AI tropes, like, it's not about X, it's about Y.
Mhm.
And those are the kind of things I pay attention to, because I feel like while you use AI, we shouldn't be using it in a lazy manner, which means when we take the output, I should be able to I want to still edit it so it sounds like me. So even though I give it some of my writing, I give it the way I speak, it still doesn't get entirely the way I sound. So I pay attention to the language. I also pay attention to the accuracy. I think a lot of times it doesn't it misses out certain things. Like, for example, these days on Instagram, I've been using AI to create carousels, marketing carousels, to share certain concepts. And I feel sometimes the visual is wrong, sometimes the story is incorrect. So I have to go and double check. Even though I'm using Claude, I use Claude 4.8 maximum for the story. There might sometimes be, especially when it comes to stories that are from Southeast Asia, when it comes specific to Singapore, maybe there's not enough content available online. It's not able to do as good of a job. The other thing that AI obviously can't do is, I mean, there's the part we spoke about, the human connection. So when I put this piece of content out there, I don't know how it's making people feel. Whereas if I go into a room to a workshop, I deliver a 30-minute talk, or I deliver a 45-minute workshop. At the end of the day, the feedback that I get from humans, I know immediately how things are landed for them. Right? Because these days, even if, let's say, I put a piece of content on LinkedIn, all the comments you get, sometimes you see, while they come from people that you're connected to, the AI, the AI comments. So even though they might say great things, I mean, I don't know how it landed to the actual human who might have consumed it.
It's an interesting thing because, like, the easily generated content where you haven't given it your context, you haven't like worked through to get to that point. And honestly, if you're sitting there listening to this podcast and you've never actually like fed all that into an AI and sat there and really hammered away at an answer, you really ought to try that, because it's a lot better than just like, hey, write a quick LinkedIn post on blah 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 with absolutely zero context, because it's just going to generate a very generic AI sounding thing. And when people do this on LinkedIn, and they do it all the time, you see it. You open up your LinkedIn feed and you can just like point, yep, that was a generic LinkedIn one prompt answer, no context hardly provided. And it's just like, that stuff I do pass up. The other things, if there was context provided, I will read through that. But you learn the more you use it where those tells are. And what's fascinating about the tells as well are, there's the M dash. I love the M dash. I used the M dash before AI, and now it's like taboo. You can't use the M dash because it was definitely AI.
Yeah.
It's like, but I love the M dash, and the AI learned that we love the M dash by reading human writing. And that's another thing to remember about AI, is that it's not just generating this stuff completely computerized. I mean, it is, but it's based on all this human writing for its training set. So it doesn't know what it's doing. It literally is just trying to predict what the next possible word is, which is pretty amazing when you think about the matrix math that's going into this, and that we're taking language into math and then putting it back into language, and that it works as well as it does. That's a little bit mind blowing. We can admit that that's a really crazy thing, that it actually works, but that's really all it's doing. So it doesn't know what the M dash is. It just knows that it found it in the English language, and it works really well to connect two thoughts that we don't want to end a sentence and start one.
One thing I do feel is, because the circles that we operate in, they use AI a lot. Like my friends, my colleagues, other fellow business owners, they're all using a lot of AI. So we can see, when you read an AI sentence or a paragraph, you know that it's AI. But the wider public, they don't use AI as often as we do. So like when I teach people that, hey, look, this sentence structure is not about resilience, it's about hard work. It's not about X, it's about Y. Once I show it to them, then they start seeing it everywhere. And they're like, oh, Razy, why did you do that? I see it in ad copy, I see it in print ads, I see it in YouTube videos. And they're like, why did you open our eyes to this,
Hmm.
to this one signal of AI? And I feel like, yeah, but we use it so often. We know what's AI, but I think the wider public, they don't use it as often, and that's where they can't discern, or they can't distinguish what is AI and what's not, and which is why it's being used for all the wrong purposes.
Yeah. And there's, at the risk of putting everybody into little buckets, there's at least 3 buckets right now. And that's like your advanced AI users who are using the stuff day in and day out to get actual work done in some form or capacity, which you and I both definitely fit into that category. You have people that have dabbled with AI and have talked to a chatbot, maybe use it for search every now and then, but don't really use it that often. You'll reach for AI, but it's not something you're going to necessarily reach for every day. And then you've got basically a group of people that are so AI averse that they're like, get that away from my system. I don't want to see that at all. And I said 3 buckets, but maybe there's a fourth. People that just don't really know much about AI and don't use it either, but don't really have an adversity or a positive feel to it. The data center stuff has definitely spun a lot of people up against it.
Oh, yes, yes. In fact, I was at the same conference I was telling you about earlier. Someone on the panel was talking about how there's this area in Malaysia where they're building these data centers, and they've written into the law or something where if there's a need to prioritize water, they would actually prioritize it to the data center instead of the people who need to drink it. Which
Wow.
I was like, what?
That is, yeah. No, we should not be taking water from people that need it to fuel data centers. I hope we could all agree on that, and hopefully Malaysia will fix that. So, in a world where AI makes it easy to do more, which is honestly one of the biggest benefits I've seen, not that, I guess, not so much that it's sped me up, though in a way that is speeding you up, but that it's making space. It's taking on some of the more menial tasks that I didn't really like doing anyway, and giving me more time for the work I want to do more. What's the hardest thing to keep choosing?
But there's a number of things. I would say one is restraint. So, like what you're saying, right? When we can use AI to do infinite output, even at very little cost, then the hardest thing to do is to do less, to be slower, to be more careful for whoever is going to be consuming whatever you're producing. I was looking at this study by a company called Capwing. They were looking at AI slop channels. So, these videos that you see on YouTube and on Instagram. And I was like wondering to myself, why are people bothering to create this AI slop? It's clearly AI slop. Then when I look at the study, one of the top AI slop channel on YouTube made $4.25 million.
Wow.
The tendency there is like, if the slop is so profitable, create mindless content at like 10, 20 posts a day is so profitable. That's going to drive even more people to do this kind of work, right? So I would say restraint. So for me, the hardest thing to choose is restraint, making sure that even though the AI has written my LinkedIn post, making sure that I put in the time, the care to look through it, to improve it further, and ensure that whoever is going to be looking or reading that piece of content is taking away value, and value that comes from lived experience. So one thing that I'm doing, so I'd say restraint is the hardest thing to keep choosing. And for myself, I make sure that I try to elevate the content with lived experience, things that I've observed, things that I've experienced myself. And I think the AI doesn't have lived experience, and that's where I can create something that is a lot more valuable.
Yeah. And that's editing. That's the editing process. When it comes to putting content out there, whether it's on the internet, whether it's in print in a book, whether, whatever content you're writing for, you never write the first draft and hit publish on that.
Yeah.
You are always at a state of editing. So if you consider what the AI put out the first time as your first draft, which is a little different than how we've always done it, where you have to sit down with a blank piece of paper, but let's just, for the sake of argument, say that's your first draft. You're still editing that down before it's what you want to actually put out there. And in that sense, that is not really any different than what writers and thinkers have been doing for centuries.
Yeah.
Take the thought, shape it, and shape it and shape it, and then go ask people for their thoughts on it and continue to shape it until finally you're ready to share that thing out.
But what I'm seeing now is with all these agents. So when I speak to some of my friends who are way more advanced to when it comes to the AI usage, they'll show me, oh, look at this. I have a Hermes agent on Telegram. I talked to her, and she's able to go write LinkedIn copy, create the visual to go with the copy, and she posts it. So they're not even involved in the editing anymore. So they just have given it the context. They just let the agents run with creating the visual, creating the post, and posting it up for them. So there's like no human editing involved anymore. So I think that's where when it comes, the hardest thing to choose is still being involved. I would say, right? To be me, like you could let the agents do everything. Like, okay, look, let my agent do everything. Let my agent.
Well, and I mean, I think you see it with vibe coding, right? Like people will let their agent just vibe code something for about 6 months. And anybody who's ever done vibe coding knows that for one thing, you start running out of context windows and you got to deal with your agent needing to understand the code yet again and again and again. But if you let a project go completely agent driven for 6 months and then something goes wrong with it and you've got to do something about it, well, nobody really knows what the project's about at that point, and it's you and the agent trying to debug something that the agent forgot how it wrote what it wrote, and you never understood what it wrote. I mean, if you take the human out and you take your understanding out, at some point you just end up in a spot where you've got product, whether it's content or actual code running on a server somewhere that you don't understand.
Yeah.
And that's kind of scary.
Yeah. Then you have to go back 6 months, or you're going to look through what is done over 6 months. It's going to take a long time.
So it's like, do they even go read their LinkedIn feed to see what actually got posted? I mean, do they know it's not posting the wrong thing?
I think the only time they probably read it is when someone flags it to them and say, "Hey, look, this sounds weird," and then
Yeah. Or if LinkedIn's like, your content got flagged as inappropriate because, like, say the agent just decided to go off the rails one day and
yeah. So yeah, maybe beyond the restraint part that I answered earlier, the hardest part to choose later on is like choosing to still have friction, not fully go towards convenience where it's smooth and it's completely frictionless. You're not involved. I think like choosing a bit of friction is going to be harder to keep choosing.
It is, but that's the moments where we learn. That's where there's a lot of good to come from friction. I mean, I enjoy frictionless workflows as well, but you got to have your moments of friction.
Exactly.
And I know writing LinkedIn content is not everybody's favorite thing in the world to do, but I think you do have to have some things out there that you're like, no, I'm not going to let the AI touch this. I'm going to do this completely 100% human.
Yeah.
For me, that's my photography mostly. When it comes down to like editing and color profiling and some of the more technical aspects of digital photography, I don't have a problem letting AI like do some analysis or, suggest some different changes here or there. But I'm not taking it out there in the field going, okay, we're here at this location at this particular time. What's the angle I need to do or anything like that? It's still a very human process when it's out in the field.
I think that's really good advice. So you still need to do something that is fully human, is fully done, controlled by you. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've recently written and published a book. Tell me a little about that.
The book is called Winning in the Age of AI, How Trust and Human Connection is the Real Competitive Edge. Like what I shared earlier at the start of the podcast, when ChatGPT first came and, it started impacting the demand for our services. And I started thinking about what is the future of being a business owner, being a marketing agency owner specifically. Over time, a lot of my peers, a lot of the other business owners, a lot of my friends, they've all been wondering, like, how do I survive in this age of AI? How do I win? And in the book, I share lessons from my business. So the restaurant owner story that we just spoke about, it's in one of the chapters of the book. And I share how you can build an edge over the AI. And the gist of it is that you need to be part of a network. You need to go and build your own networks. Essentially, the essence of it is you have to step out there, meet people, be someone who's trustworthy, earn people's trust, plant seeds of trust, and then over time, opportunities will find you. Over time, the human connection, the trust you've built will find you, and it will help you gain an edge over all the AI that's coming for the work that we do.
So where can people find the book and then follow your work or explore your thoughts further if they would like to follow up?
They can find the book on Amazon. So it's available in Kindle format is available in the paperback and hardcover. If you're based in Malaysia, you can find it in bookstores in Malaysia. It's across MPH bookstores. And where you could follow me, LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I post 3 to 4 times a week. So I share my thoughts, my observations, like I talked about earlier with you, Carl, about lived experience. So when I experience things, when I observe things, I actually share my thoughts around it on LinkedIn. I make sure there's value in it for the audience. So when you read my post, you'll feel like you've learned something. And Instagram. So Instagram, I'm just using it to share marketing concepts using carousel. So you can follow me on LinkedIn, follow me on Instagram, and get the book on Amazon.
And I can guarantee everybody listening that his LinkedIn posts are not AI slop. So you can confidently follow Razy on LinkedIn, and it's not going to fill your timeline with slop.
Thank you, Carl.
So Razy, one final question to help the audience get to know you a little bit better. What's something about how you work today that past you wouldn't recognize?
I'll tell you what I used to do. So in the past, I used to feel that my work will speak for itself. What I mean by this is I do good work, I put in the effort, the opportunities will find me, and I refuse to post anything on LinkedIn, right? And what I then discovered was that the people who were active on the platform, they were getting not just the cloud, but also the opportunities. So past me hoped that doing good work will bring opportunities through word of mouth. But I've started sharing my work. I've started putting things on LinkedIn, and that is bringing me the opportunities. It's bringing me a lot more opportunities. So as if past me wouldn't believe that current or future Razy would be active on social, specifically on a platform like LinkedIn. So I am, and it's brought me opportunities manyfold. That's something I would recommend. So when I talk about posting on LinkedIn, I don't post who I had coffee with. I don't post my lunch. I don't post my holiday. I post professional things that my audience is following me for. And the other thing to note for everyone who's listening is when we look at AI overviews, when we look at how LLMs surface their outputs, I think the second top cited source is LinkedIn content. So if your LinkedIn content is out there, you're helping the LLM surface more about you, more about your work, and you're educating the LLM. So I think it's also even more important now.
That's fascinating and very good answer there. Well, Razy, thank you so much for coming on Practically Speaking. It's been a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Carl. I'm looking forward to listening to the episode and sharing it with everyone that I know.
That's Practically Speaking, brought to you by the letters P and M. If this one resonated, subscribe and pass it along. Real stories travel best by word of mouth. You can find us at www.practicallyspeaking.com or on LinkedIn. I'm Carl Abbott. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.